Hi, everyone. Happy Pop Chat Friday. It's New Music Friday. Let me know what you're streaming in case you're new to the Jonas Brothers or their new album. They have a new song out today called Love Me to Heaven. So that's what I've been streaming, but say hello in the chat. Let me know what you guys are listening to. But it's Friday. We made it. Also, spring has sprung, lots of trending topics, lots to discuss today. So let me just get this going. But start by saying hello in the chat. So, oh, hey, Brent. Brent is here. Here we go. So, welcome to Pop Chat. If this is your first time here, let me just reintroduce myself. My name is Brienne Fleming. I have been hosting Pop Chat for 5 years. I am a marketer, a fangirl of boy bands like the Jonas Brothers, the Backstreet Boys in particular, have my heart. But I'm also an academic. I teach branding and social media at the University of Florida, hence the Gator Chomp. I'm a content creator and I'm a new mom living in Jupiter, Florida. I host a podcast called Making the Brand and also write a newsletter called By Popular Demand. So lots of pop culture, lots of fun things. So take a moment, tell us who you are, where you're joining from, and what you do. Paige is here. Yay. Thanks so much for joining, Paige. So tell us who you are, where you're joining from, because unlike what the Backstreet Boys say, I do care who you are, where you're from, and what you do. So let's jump into this first. What is Pop Chat? If this is your first time here, it is a weekly series where marketers and pop culture fans come together to connect, to learn from each other, but also to regroup on trends and things happening in our industry, but also things going on in sports, music, movies, TV, all that fun stuff. We are going to cover it all. Hey, Chris from Jacksonville. I make sure my company is getting the most out of its sponsorships and community partnerships. So happy you're here. Keep us posted on that NFL draft contest I know you've been running. How it works. First and foremost, be you. There is no authority here, no matter what your background is, whether you work in marketing or not. This is just a fun place where we all can share and celebrate our perspectives. So share, reply to other people, connect, and just have fun. Joseph, yay! Hi from Tampa. Glad you didn't have a meeting at this time, Joseph. No meeting Fridays. We love to see it. Same with Paige, right? Devang is here. Hi. So just to kick us off, as you're introducing ourselves, a little bit of an icebreaker. If you could instantly master any skill, what would it be? So curious to hear your responses. Let me take a second and fix this screen share, though. If you could instantly master any skill, what would it be? I know my answer. Maddie's here from Tequesta, right up the road from me, actually. I think if I could instantly master any skill, it would have to be probably ice skating or gymnastics. Like I think about other things I want to learn. Like I want to learn Spanish and maybe the piano. I don't think it's too late for that, but to be able to like tumble or to do a triple axel, I think the ship has sailed on that. We'll see as I'm 35 this year. And yeah, I did see though, there are some adult tumbling classes out there. I might have to take those. Hey, Hannah from Ottawa, social media manager. Awesome. And yes, Paige is here, social engagement coordinator at Hootsuite, our favorite owl. We love him. We talked about Hootsuite on a recent Pop Chat. Baking Page, there is still time. You didn't pick that up during the pandemic. I am shocked. Neither did I, though. I still have yet to ever approach my own loaf of bread. Rapali's here from sunny Los Angeles. Brent, you're doing great. You already are mastering content creation. So great to see you. Lathan says, I would love to learn martial arts as I never got to take classes as a kid. My next door neighbor is in his 40s and he still swears by, lives and breathes Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So it's never too late. Devang says, animation. Love that. Have you ever dabbled in that, Devang, in any way? Nicolay's here. So great to see you. I know it's dinner time where you are. Thank you so much for joining. Snow skiing or scuba diving. Oh, tried each one. Yeah, tried each one time. Didn't go well. Yeah, same with me with skiing, but I'm content with never skiing again. It was a near-death experience for me. So keep chiming in, but let's go over today in pop culture history. Just a little bit of fun before we get into trending topics. The hashtag holidays for this weekend. Wait for it. It's National Puppy Day on Sunday. So if you've been thinking about getting one, maybe now's the time. And also treat yourself. National Chip and Dip Day. But as we talk about National Puppy Day here, I just want to take a moment to speak to how genius BuzzFeed's puppy interviews are. If you haven't seen those, the way they've taken a simple content concept like an interview and just thrown puppies into the mix to make it more interesting. And, if you're interviewing Chris Evans, that can't hurt either. But just brilliant. And also famous birthdays. This one's a throwback. Matthew Broderick is 63 today. So Ferris Bueller. And if you didn't know, he is the voice of older Simba in The Lion King. I think most people know that, but I love a fun fact. Also, another fun fact, he's married to Sarah Jessica Parker. And speaking of Sarah Jessica Parker, we have to take a moment to look at this video.
Be more respectful. Yeah. You can't just take over the street because you like it.
I understand, but it wasn't our group, but it's okay.
I apologize if it wasn't you. I apologize. I take it back. This happens all the time. The loud ones go, and I lecture the ones who stay.
For years.
I apologize.
No, it's okay.
But I try not to do this, but sometimes people cross a line, and I can't.
No, I understand. I understand you have.
It's her apartment.
Thank you so much for understanding. Have a great day. And remember, this is not empty. It's a private home, and it's not Carrie's. It's mine.
Yeah. So this went viral this week. The actual owner of her brownstone in New York had to speak to some tourists. They've recently put up a gate because everyone's out there taking pictures in front of the house. And, I thought this guy was very patient, but a lot of the headlines around it are like, homeowner lashes out at tourists. I didn't really think so. I thought he was very reasonable, but just wanted to share a little trending headline. Chris wants to homebrew beer. I've messed around with it, but if I could master it instantly, it would be so great. Yeah, and that would probably save you some money. Going out and getting beer. Hannah loves a BuzzFeed puppy interview. It helps everyone feel so much more natural. Yeah, how can you not let your hair down in an interview when there's puppies everywhere? That's a really great point. Also, Pop Culture Rewind. On March 24th, we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of The Office. So if you're a big fan, this is one show I couldn't really get into. I know some people are probably judging me for that, but I can appreciate 20 years. I can appreciate the memes and everyone who loves it. So if you have any content planned around The Office, or if you want to brush off a special meme just for this occasion, it's coming up on Monday. Also, this week in 2002, Halle Berry won the Best Actress Oscar for her role in Monsters Ball. She was the first and only Black woman to win this honor, beating out Nicole Kidman, Judi Dench, Renee Zellweger. And it's been a long time coming, but definitely go and watch this speech if it's been a while. It is just so moving, and she so deserved this, and it was a truly iconic moment. And this is just something I had to put in here. Speaking of the Jonas Brothers and New Music Friday, this is the most wholesome thing I saw on the internet this week. So the Jonas Brothers are celebrating 20 years with an event called JonasCon. And this fan tweeted out, "Can we do some introductions before JonasCon? So many of us are going, can't wait to meet everyone." And she kind of had her stats, where she's from, how old she is, what night she's going, favorite album, favorite Jonas Brother, and some other things she loves. And how wholesome is this? Every single Jonas Brother retweeted her. It was like, "I'm Kevin, I'm Nick, I'm Joe," and shared all the nights that they're going to the show. Joe says he loves long walks on the beach, literature, and baked goods. So, Paige, there's a reason to learn to bake. Joe Jonas is single now. I just thought this was so adorable. This is a reason why I will never delete Twitter as long as stuff like this is going on. You got to love it. So that's the week in kind of throwbacks and just some in case you missed it. But now let's talk about trending topics. I think we're all excited about this. Some of us might have some reservations, but Ted Lasso season 4 is official. It has been not only green lighted, but just announced. You can see Apple TV here tweeted this out. Season 4 is on the way. I really didn't think this would happen. As some people have said, I mean, they wrapped up season 3, the whole series with a nice bow, but it's coming back. And speaking of Twitter, I thought this was awesome. So Ted Lasso himself tweeted, "Finally found the dang password to this thing. Sorry, y'all. What did I miss?" And McDonald's, with the perfect reply, said snack wraps are coming back. That had been announced since Ted Lasso had wrapped. So you got to love when a brand swoops in and has a perfect reply. But it's no wonder this is coming back, because I also saw this headline. Apple is losing over $1 billion per year on its streaming service and has 45 million Apple TV Plus subscribers. Yet they're losing $1 million. So something's got to give. And I don't know, can Ted Lasso save Apple TV? Is that enough to get people to sign up or renew? So my question for you all is, how can you tell when it's time to move on from something successful? Even if it's at its peak, it's doing well. How do you know when it might be time to take a step back? Because you might have something that's just a constant hit maker like Ted Lasso. So how do you know? I mean, how do we think they knew it was only meant to be 3 seasons? How do you know when to pull the plug on an idea, even when it's really great? Kevin's here. I'm surprised Jason is back. Thought it was going to focus on a secondary character. Yeah, I'm surprised by that too, especially since he, it seemed like it wrapped up that he was moving back to the States. So I don't know. I wonder if he'll still be, the title character and still be as involved, and maybe he'll have more of a writing role. But either way, I will be tuning in. Snack wraps for the win. So how can you tell when it's time to move on from something successful? How do you know when an idea has just run its course? Time to pivot, time to reinvent, time to try something new. Because you're right, Kevin, they could have done a secondary character. They could have done a spin-off. They could have just finished it off, but they're bringing it back. Hannah says, when you're not feeling challenged anymore, sometimes you know when there isn't more fertile ground to cover. Yes, I love that, because that makes it more about the creators. I love that answer, Hannah, because I was kind of expecting people, and maybe we'll go this direction, to talk about how the audience is reacting to it. And that's how you know when it's run its course. But you're talking about, as a creator, as someone launching something, if you personally are not feeling challenged, then don't keep doing something that you're not, getting as most out of personally. So that is a really great answer. I love that. Nicolay says, when the story feels complete, and if you continue it, it won't make it better. Ooh, yes. And time will tell with Ted Lasso if a continuation truly makes it better. I think there's still potential, but I don't know. I think they really have to shake things up and introduce a lot of new storylines, which I'm sure they plan to do. Amar says, if it's a show, it's when the storyline is getting predictable and your metrics are showing an audience is leaving. As for a work perspective, when the place that you are succeeding in no longer brings you joy and excitement, but stress and anxiety. Ooh, I have been there. I have been there, that last part where you kind of have that turning point and you realize, this isn't the place for me anymore, even though I once loved it. Oh, rumor says he's coaching the women's team. Okay, that'd be interesting. Back in the UK, I wonder. Women's Greyhound team. Okay, I hadn't heard that, but that would certainly shake things up. Lathan says, do not drag something out. Understand and recognize when something reaches its peak and let it be there. How do we know? How do we understand? How do we recognize? Because I think there's that temptation. It's like, okay, we're on top of the world. There's more momentum here. We have this momentum. When do we start bringing it down? So I don't know. Let's see. Kevin says, of note, Bill Lawrence did both Scrubs and Ted Lasso. Scrub had its finale season with all the main characters saying goodbye, and then it got renewed. So they had a weird final season with JD and Turk in half the episodes and a whole lot of new characters, which didn't work. Yeah. And speaking of that, that makes me think of Suits and how Suits wrapped up, which I think was the best finale I'd ever seen from a show. And then, Meghan Markle left, so then they had to pivot. And now there's Suits LA. I don't know how all of those are going, but I'd be curious to check on it. I think this is Joseph. A few toughest show business question of all, a combination of gauging audience passion level and artist passion level and studio media passion level. Okay. Ooh, I'd love for you to elaborate on that, Joseph. Studio passion as well. Like, I guess the people making the show, and if they're interested in renewing it or if they want it to be canceled, that makes sense. Chris says, when you stop having fun, when it starts to become more about the expectation, than growth. Yeah, just showing up just because your audience wants you to, and it's not really something that you're still enjoying. I really appreciate that answer. That makes a lot of sense. So keep chiming in on this. Today's World Poetry Day. Sorry, Devang. I think, again, some of my comments on here come in really late. I assume you brought this up on the National Day slide. JD's final scene. Everyone go check that out. Let me know if you have another favorite show that you thought the finale was just like chef's kiss. For me, that is Suits. Okay, so moving on. There's a new trend, and it's something that I didn't know I like to do, but there's a name for it. It's called set jetting. Set jetting. So the Four Seasons hotels are where all of the White Lotus seasons have been taking place. And now it's led to people booking and, visiting these Four Seasons hotels because they were the set of the White Lotus. And I learned that this is the first season that that the Four Seasons is allowed to lean into this and actually use the White Lotus's name. So now, finally, the Four Seasons is hosting like White Lotus viewing parties and a White Lotus themed wellness retreat and all these cool things. This says, for example, after season 2, web visits to their Sicily location jumped by 193%. And the Maui resort saw nearly a 3-fold increase. Even better, new guests are willing to pay top dollar for the White Lotus experience, with occupancy in the more expensive suites going up by 7%. But what's interesting about this is the article I was reading here is saying that the Four Seasons had to take a really big risk to decide that they wanted to be part of this White Lotus series and that their hotels were going to be, the setting, because the White Lotus is pretty dark. There are some dark themes. There's a lot of murder. There's just a lot of chaos and, illegal crime and things happening. And the Four Seasons decided that risk was worth it. And in order to be featured, they kind of overlooked those dark themes. And it sounds like it's paying off for them. So this also reminded me of the And Just Like That series. Sorry for any Sex and the City spoilers, but when Peloton was featured, but then Big dies on the Peloton, has a heart attack. I'm not sure if this worked out quite as well as the White Lotus. Because this feels like this could actually maybe happen. I don't know. But Peloton was in crisis mode, and they didn't know that this was going to be what they did with their brand by featuring them. So the White Lotus is winning here, but it makes me wonder, how can brands assess whether a risky or controversial opportunity will be worth it? How can brands assess whether a risky or controversial opportunity will be worth it? Lathan says this makes sense. I have been saying this for a while. People go to haunted hotels. Why not luxury ones where people are murdered? Why not? You could go to the spa. You could sit by the pool. And thankfully, this is all fictitious. But I have stayed at a hotel, yeah, that was supposedly haunted. There's supposedly a murder there. The uh, Del Coronado Hotel in San Diego, gorgeous hotel. Peloton got lucky with the pandemic instead. Yes, Amrapali. However, the pandemic is just such a time warp. I learned that this Peloton placement came after the pandemic. This was in late or mid-pandemic, late 2021. So I think they kind of rode that wave of the pandemic, and then this happened, and then they've kind of been fizzling out. I'm still a Peloton girly, but it's been interesting to watch. Layson says, always lean into either paid or accidental involvement in a viral trend and own the narrative around it. Yeah, I think that's the big difference, Lathan. Own that narrative, and that's definitely what Peloton had to do. Joseph says, yes, elaborating. I mean, the media outlet, awful example, but in the early 70s, Joseph knows all about like 70s media and shows. CBS wanted to change its programming to reach more sophisticated audiences. So even while the shows like the Beverly Hillbillies still had a passionate audience and a passionate cast, the studio had lost its passion, and it seemed time for the show to come to an end, and it did. I did not know that. Love the Beverly Hillbillies. I wonder if in hindsight, if that was a good idea. I guess if it makes sense, even if the metrics and everything are still working out, you got to do what's right for you. Kevin says the White Lotus came out of the pandemic. They needed to shoot with a small cast. So the Four Seasons probably viewed it as a way to advertise when they were in a down period where people weren't going to resorts. Great observation. Yeah, you and Amrapali are kind of really evaluating the timing of things and making these decisions. So that's really smart. Hannah says, can you imagine leaning even further in and creating immersive murder mystery experiences within the hotel? You know what? I think that's a great free idea. Hannah, I think we should maybe tweet that to the Four Seasons. But yeah, so far I've seen they're just doing like wellness retreats and viewing parties, but I don't want to do any spoilers, but yeah, maybe they could do something on a yacht that gets a little bit a little dicey. So, yeah, how can brands assess whether a risky or controversial opportunity will be worth it? I think, yeah, you guys bring up great points. If you own that narrative, why not? It's exposure. Amrapali says it deepens or it depends on their audience, and if that is something they would see their audience around, no risk, no reward. That's how it goes. All right. So just a little in case you missed it, I don't have a question on this. This might not be safe for work, but speaking of the White Lotus, Skims is at it again. Skims has partnered with Patrick Schwarzenegger and also his fiance, Abby Champion, in the new Skims campaign to launch what they're calling the wedding shop, which is all, intimates and underwear, all kinds of things surrounded by or themed for a wedding and, honeymoon, those types of fun things. So they're featured in the campaign, two very good looking people. But this is not the first time that Skims has tapped into the White Lotus. They had two other characters from last season do, I think, their Valentine's Day campaign. So Skims is just on it. And I love this copy in the email. It says, no ring, no problem. You don't have to be a bride to love these new seasonal styles. So, trying to be catering to their audience and knowing that maybe not everyone has a wedding coming up and there's still plenty of products that make sense. There are luxury trains that do themes like this. Ooh, sounds like my nightmare, but could be a big money baker. All right, we've got lots of industry news to cover, but of course it's Feel Good Friday. So share something good, share something that happened to you this week that you're really proud of. It could be big, it could be small. Give a shout out to someone, share a product you really like or a brand, something you read that was interesting. This is your moment to kind of have the mic and hang out and celebrate something. So I will celebrate that I am going to appear on Kayla Bryant's podcast next week. And this is major because I'm kind of putting myself back out there a little bit since having a baby and just haven't quite found the time to host my own podcast again, but little onesie twosie interviews here and there I have been doing. So thank you to Kayla. And I also wanted to spotlight this post that she did. I can't believe April Fool's is already here. So she did a little roundup talking about April Fool's, yay or nay, and some of the benefits of it, and also just some ways to avoid getting canceled on April Fool's because a lot of brands get it wrong. So if you have any thoughts on April Fool's, let me know if you're planning something for maybe a brand that you work for, or if you're pro April Fool's, not a fan, let me know. Skims, yeah, it must be nice to have a marketing budget that is larger than the GDP of some countries. Yeah, they've been killing it. Or probably says 16-course vegan omakase with a friend and my sister. Say no more. Is that what you're doing this weekend, or that already happened? Either way, sounds delish. So let me know your thoughts on April Fool's, anything else you want to celebrate. But let's get into some industry news here. I'm sure you saw this. Pepsi is buying Poppi. Say that 10 times. Pepsi buys Poppi for $1.95 billion. Billion. That's with a B. And their story is just incredible. But I'm going to read you this quote from Forbes that their author, Clara Ludmere, said. She said, creating a cultural buzz and refreshing a product category entirely to appeal to both young consumers and historic soda drinkers is something dominant brands like Coke or Pepsi simply cannot achieve. So Coke and Pepsi, they're too far gone at this point in her eyes. Not even by launching a new brand, as they most likely will not be able to build a community and lifestyle around it the way new brand founders are able to do when they have complete freedom around formula, creative choices, and go to market. So Clara says, yes, starting small and from nothing sometimes does have its advantages. So is it too late for Coke and Pepsi to kind of reapproach and rebrand and relaunch a community? I thought this was a really interesting point, and we're going to talk about community and being a small brand in a second. Fastest company to receive a $1 billion acquisition. How do we fact check this? I think that's a good prediction. I think that's a really good prediction. So what is the difference between a customer base and a community? I thought that was a really interesting point in this article, which kind of implied that Coke and Pepsi, it's kind of going to be hard for them. It's an uphill climb for them to build a true community now, whereas Poppi kind of entered in and was so community focused from the start. So kind of seems like Coke and Pepsi have customers, but not so much a community, where Poppi is seen as sort of this lifestyle brand. It has a community. So what is the difference here between a customer base and a community? Lathan is saying, my issue with brand April Fool's pranks is that they normally would totally work in reality. Jeep, an SUV only brand, pitched a sedan that I have a feeling would have done well. Huh. Yeah, so maybe they should follow through on these ideas after all. Sidebar, while you guys are thinking about this, and speaking of kind of pranks, Netflix put out this trailer for a new show called Mascots, where they were going to be like profiling different mascots from different sports teams. And it turned out it was a prank. And they're instead just releasing a new version of, or a new season of that show, Quarterbacks, if you've ever seen that. And I was totally jazzed to watch a show about the mascots. I thought that would have been a really smart idea. And in fact, that's what the news cycle is saying, is that a lot of people are disappointed, and it ended up being a joke. So, you know, maybe your silly ideas are your best ideas. Devang says engagement, celebs being active in Poppi, in their Poppi community helps. Yeah. And, you know, everyone's so health conscious now. I think it would seem sort of out of place if someone like a LeBron James came in and was like, I drink Coke. It's not believable. Anthony's here. The fastest company to reach a $1 billion acquisition was Jet.com, which was acquired by Walmart for $3.3 billion in 2019, just over 2 years after its founding. Thank you for the intel, Anthony. So happy you're here. But we're going to talk a little bit more about Poppi's early beginnings in a second. Rapali says, customer base is the people who you sell towards. A community is a group of fans. I like that distinction. And they just feel different. A customer feels like a more transactional relationship, where a community feels like a warm hug, Lathan says, communities gather and are connected by your brand. It is full-time engagement. Customer bases buy your product when they need it and move on. Okay, so kind of the life cycle and the level of involvement and engagement is different. I love that. Yeah, maybe it is the fastest food and beverage brand. Yo, Netflix really had me all excited. Hulu actually did a mascot documentary. As a former mascot actor, I felt seen. Lathan, tell us more about that. What a fun fact. Chris says, a community is a group that has crossed that line into loyalty. A customer base is still making decisions at the shelf. Ooh, that's a hot take. I like that. Let me give you a little sparkle for that. Hold on, Chris. I think that's interesting. Yeah, a customer can still be swayed, whereas if you're part of a community, you can't be swayed. You are locked in. Locked in. So keep chiming in on this, but yeah, Poppi, I mean, they were saying that they've gone to so many different events, they have all these activations, and everyone is, like I said, is so health conscious now that I don't know if these brands are these other, traditional soda brands can keep up. So the other highlight that Forbes article mentioned is that since Poppi was a small brand kind of entering the market at the right time, they were able to iterate and get to this point. So what is an advantage of being a new or emerging brand or small business? I think the goal is always to become as big as possible, but there are some unique advantages when you're in those early stages. So as a marketer, as a founder, what could be some of those advantages? Joseph says, I think social media offers a clear example. A social media audience is a community and one that a company should advertise very little to, because the community already believes in the brand and wants to know about things related to the brand's industry. As Simon Sinek illuminated, a customer base is different and is an audience that is more appropriate to advertise to. Okay, now we're getting really specific on how to actually connect with these people. I think that makes a lot of sense. It almost feels out of place when a brand that you've been purchasing from and are super loyal to presents you with an ad. Most of the ads that I see, at least on Instagram, are brands that I've rarely shopped or hadn't heard of, and I needed that little push. It's kind of like, hey, you already know me. Why are you advertising to me? So interesting. Oh, these are the mascot rules. I cannot tell much more. I would ruin the magic. I cannot break the code. I get it. I get it. Can you tell me what kind of mascot you were? What was the costume? I don't need to know where and all of that, but well, I guess that would spoil the magic if I knew. I could kind of pull you out of a lineup then. So keep the magic. That's really cool. I'll have to maybe look for you in the next documentary. So what is an advantage of being a new or emerging brand or a small business? Rapali says you don't have to play by the same rules as the big brands do. You have the ability to truly be authentically yourself and find your small community who will be your advocate, and fans bring a larger audience to you. Yeah, it's like you can be in the sandbox a little longer, and you're experimenting and the expectations are lower, and you can make mistakes. You can pivot. You can not have it totally figured out and no one notices. Yeah, as Devang is saying, ability to shift toward which audiences you appeal to. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times if you're a brand and you think you know your audience, once you actually start creating and start trying to reach them, you might learn that that's not really your audience, or who you thought they were isn't exactly right. So yeah, there's still time to pivot. Chris says it's important to gauge. Oh, I'm sorry if these are delayed. We're back to the White Lotus, but I love this. It's important to gauge risky and controversial opportunities against your mission and vision. If the White Lotus theme fits with Four Seasons' mission of service and guests first, it's a good move. Yeah, you're right. The service was always top notch. There were some heinous things going on behind the scenes, but I try to I love that point because it's something you should do with every decision you want to make as a brand, is tie it back to your purpose, your mission, your bigger values, and who you are as a brand. I think so many times we make decisions without reminding ourselves of those things. So thanks for bringing us back down to earth with that, Chris. Lathan says, everyone loves the hot new kid on the block. You can get by on the novelty while you build your longer term strategy, and you have nothing to lose, no legacy to change. Yeah. And it kind of gives you someone to root for. Like you said, everyone loves the new kid on the block. So if you can show that you're a new and emerging small business, just grinding it out, doing your thing, like, people will want to support you. And that seems to be the case with a lot of people who appear on Shark Tank and do all these pitches, is people then hear their story and try to rally behind them and become fans and customers. So Chris says, when you're a new and small brand, you retain more control of the narrative. You do that at the expense of doing more of the work and using the resources, but that can be very valuable. Yeah. And when you own that narrative in the beginning, it kind of helps you just really get clear on who you are and who you want to be, and kind of flex that muscle a bit. So I love that. Anthony's here. He says, an old brand, I believe, has less flexibility as you are presenting the same thing in new ways, less ability to try new things. Yeah. And especially Pepsi and Coke. It's like, man, they've been around for decades, over 100 years. Yeah. Anthony's a new kid on the block and everyone loves you. We're happy you're here. I should queue up. I should make this a thing, shouldn't I? I should have some New Kids on the Block sound effects just behind the scenes in the bank, ready to go for stuff like this. I think that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, but yeah, how is Pepsi and Coke gonna iterate and rebrand? I mean, they've come up with different flavors and tried different things. They've worked with Britney Spears. I mean, after that, it's really just a peak. You've peaked at that moment. So, but speaking of new kids on the block and rallying behind people and being a small business, these are the early days of Poppi, which was actually originally called the Mother Beverage, if you didn't know that. Their founder, Allison Ellsworth, was featured on a podcast. This was in 2018, I want to say. And the headline is, she lost 20 pounds and built a $2 million business in 2 years. And here we are a few years later, and it's at 2 billion. So I hope she appears on this podcast again, just to regroup and follow up and be like, you're not going to believe what I've been up to. And then here, I love this. They shared this on their old Facebook, Mother Beverage, which is still active, but they had to completely migrate to a new Facebook page. So excited to be on the cover of Go Texan, a very local magazine. And now they're in Forbes and all the things. So keep doing what you're doing, everyone. Joseph says, an emerging brand has the flexibility to shapeshift itself, to express itself as powerfully and authentically as possible as it continues to grow. Established brands are boxed into a particular image, especially the older and bigger they are. Boom. Joseph, I think you just wrapped up this whole conversation perfectly. Established brands are boxed into a particular image, especially the older and bigger they are. Yeah. And then you're changing perceptions, and that is an uphill battle. Yeah, I didn't realize apple cider vinegar. I didn't know Poppi was based on this. She was taking apple cider vinegar for health reasons or drinking it. And that's how the idea came about. I think she was taking it for gut health or something she was doing. And she realized this tastes terrible. So Allison literally was in her kitchen making these different recipes to kind of camouflage the taste of apple cider vinegar, but still include it in the recipe and make it into a drink that is both healthful or healthy and, still tasted good. So I feel like unless I'm not up to speed, I feel like that isn't really part of Poppy's image right now. Like I know they talk about being a prebiotic soda, but I haven't really heard apple cider vinegar like as part of their messaging or something that they highlight. I'll have to look into that. It's probably listed on the label and has a decent percentage. So, yeah. Okay. Forever 21, they're gone. They're on their way out. And interestingly enough, they have blamed Shein and Temu for their demise, which are online websites, I believe, that are sourced and everything ships from China. Everything is very cheap and they've really taken off on TikTok and you can get a lot of stuff for a fraction of the price. And yeah, Forever 21 is blaming Shein and Temu for their downfall. Says the fast fashion retailer has already started going out of business sales at more than 350 locations, but is still holding out hope that a buyer could materialize and take over operations. So my question is, and then what? They take over operations, but the case will remain that Shein and Temu aren't going anywhere, and they're probably always going to be cheaper. So, my question to you, smart marketers in the room, how can brands make the case for higher priced products when budget alternatives exist? How can brands make the case for higher priced products when budget alternatives exist? Ooh, it's a kind of a hard problem to solve. Um, I thought maybe highlighting the messaging that Forever 21 is possibly more sustainable, but no, they're still a fast fashion brand, as that article just said. So trying to become more purpose driven could be part of it, but I don't know if that really applies. Oh, Lathan, yes. So long, Forever 21, going to mall heaven with sharper image, KB Toys, limited to a store that I used to work at the mall. It's called Anchor Blue, which is gone. Anyone from the West Coast might recognize that one. What else? They still have the Disney store, the animation store. I'm sure there are more. Feel free to use this as your place to to mourn the mall. Sam Goody. Ugh, Sam Goody's gone. Yes, very sad. Such brand equity in that name. So true. So true. I know. And I guess Forever 21 is not so forever. Mm. Yeah. Anthony says online shopping is where it's at. My doorstep says so. Yeah. And I haven't really seen Forever 21 competing in the online space either. So saving all of those locations, they're still going to have to innovate and really try to drive some online sales. And I never see them advertise either. Maybe it's because I'm not in my 20s anymore. I never see them advertise. But Amr Pali says quality of the product. Many would buy higher quality product if it lasts longer. Also, if there's a purpose statement that resonates with the audience. Yeah. And I'll have to go back and see if they've been trying this. But at the same time, I can't really say Forever 21 is a lot higher quality. Do we think so? Is that the answer? Did they fix the quality problem and then become even more expensive? Does that work for who their audience is? I don't know. I don't envy them in this problem. Kind of tricky. So, yeah, online is where it's at. And it's just way too easy to Amazon Prime things. It's way too easy. So, any other thoughts? How can brands make the case for higher priced products when budget alternatives exist? Ugh. Competing solely on price, it's hard. And that's where some of those other things we've discussed come into play, like having a community, having loyalty, having a reason to want to buy from that brand, regardless of price. But sometimes it is what it is. All right. So moving on, keep sharing thoughts on this if you have more to say. Oh, Chris says premium pricing can come with a culture of service and customer attention that really differentiates. Local bookstores survive when they provide good service and care about their fans and customers. Yeah. And to that point, I mean, local bookstores, they feel like an experience. Like you can go to a local bookstore, even if you're not buying a book that day, but you can go and sit and do some work. You can meet up with a friend and have a conversation. So maybe Forever 21 needs to be more experiential. We'll see. What do 21-year-olds want to do? Do they need a bar? When you turn 21, come to Forever 21. Have your first drink with us. Let's do that. All right. So moving on. Substack. They have launched something called the Substack Post. And what is that? I will tell you. Oh my God, a Spencer Gifts in the mall in our town. I thought they were dead. Spencer Gifts, I had I should not have been in that store as young as I was. But they would sell Backstreet Boys stuff in there. So you can get a little bit of everything. I'm not sure who their audience is, but I believe her name is Aaliyah. I'm actually connected on LinkedIn with Spencer's social media manager, and there's some kind of affiliation with Spirit Halloween because I know she does social for both. So I wonder if it's the same company. But interesting. Keep us posted on that, Chris. So the Substack Post, when they launched this publication, there was a quote here. It says, "The internet has solved the problem of boredom, inundating us with abundant entertainment, letting us scroll to the end of the universe, never bereft of content." Ain't that the truth? And that's the problem. We're so busy consuming that we risk losing sight of what truly nourishes us. Our social media diets are making us cultural Slavans. I've never heard this word, Slavans. Overstuffed with the digital equivalent of candy and fried chicken. Overstuffed with the digital equivalent of candy and fried chicken. So basically, our brains are rotting with all of the content that we've been consuming, and the Substack Post is trying to put out higher quality content that, just connects us a little bit better and nourishes us. So how can brands move beyond this disposable content they speak of to create more meaningful audience experiences? How can brands make sure they're not contributing to kind of this bad diet of content and contribute in a more meaningful, valuable way? This can be brands, this can be creators. How can you make sure that the content that you're creating and bringing to the table doesn't feel like brain rot? Doesn't feel like it's hurting our digital diets? Very curious about this one. And I think it goes back to a lot of the themes that we've already discussed. We've had brand purpose come up a bit in today's pop chat. But I don't know. It just makes me think of the shenanigans and things that we're seeing a lot more of. We're seeing, mascots dying. I hope that this is part of a bigger cultural reset and we're creating content that is more valuable. I will say personally, I don't know if this has really helped, but I feel like it has. I've deleted Instagram. I do have it on my phone right now this week. I did have to add it back for something. But for the most part, I have been off Instagram for like 9 months. I do check it on desktop. I am checking in. But I just felt like it was so mindless and so disposable and not, if I'm going to be addicted to my phone and scrolling things, I want there to be a little bit more of a chance to feed my brain with some good stuff. And I just felt like Instagram wasn't really doing that for me. Lathan says, Too often, content is made to fill space. You see it with endless new Netflix shows. Make content to create a space. Oh my gosh, rather than waste it. That is so brilliant. Make content to create a space rather than waste it. Connect and be multidimensional. Be fun and meaningful. You know what, Lathan? You get some sparkles. Woo. Come. Woo. That is brilliant. And it's so community focused. Too often content is made to fill a space. You see it with endless new Netflix shows. Create a space. How do I stop this? There we go. I love that. That's fantastic. No copy paste at times, especially the emails. It is always the same. Nothing changes. Also, too much content from various platforms. I am slowly unsubscribing and unfollowing brands. Yeah, that's a great point too. It's like, at what point is the onus on us to make sure we're not subscribing to garbage, for lack of a better word, for things that are contributing to that bad or poor content diet. But at the same time, we love escapism. So find that balance of the brain rot, but also high quality content. Or if you're going to be on your phone, also pick up a book, you know. There was a period of time where we were subscribing to the Wall Street Journal, and we were getting the print version of it. And I used a couple articles in here today, I think, that were from the Wall Street Journal. We just do the digital now, but I would feel so much better about myself just going through and actually reading a Wall Street Journal article versus just like kind of seeing the headline really quick from, People Magazine, regurgitating it on Instagram. Like, to sit down and really read high quality writing, I think that's what Substack is after. Chris says, maybe create content that gives people permission and motivation to enjoy some peace and space and not just scroll to the next thing. Not necessarily this, but remember the Nickelodeon Day of Play where they put up a screen telling kids to go and play. Yes. Or that also reminds me of REI and their Opt Outside campaign where they close on Black Friday and tell everyone to go outside. And yeah, if you read the full Substack article, Chris, I think you'll really enjoy it. It talks about the concept of how we're always told to go outside and touch grass. And the Substack article talks about this idea of touching paper and touching like higher quality content that feeds our minds. It's really interesting. Anthony says, build content with purpose, and that gives your audience a fresh breath. Meet your audience where they are and disrupt entertainment to be more thoughtful. It means you would have to be more in tune with your audience. Yeah, this can't be forced either. Build content with purpose, and that gives your audience a fresh breath. I love how just thought-provoking that is. Like, what does that mean for every brand and as individual creators? I hope that Pop Chat feels like a breath of fresh air in your Fridays today. But yeah, that's such a simple way to look at it. Like, how can we make our content feel like a breath of fresh air? I really love that and think it's something that brands can use to brainstorm. Thanks for that, Anthony. Joseph says, one conclusion I've come to as far as social media is for a brand to not over-publish or publish so much that most of the audience has a difficult time keeping up with all of the communications and making sense of the trajectory of the brand. I've muted or unfollowed some brands because they simply post too much, and I get frustrated trying to keep up with everything. Yeah, and this goes back to what Lathan was saying, is don't just post to take up space, add value as well. Ooh. P.S. I just finished the book Deep Work, a good wake-up call to go for a walk without the earbuds and actively process and solve problems. How did you know I needed to hear that, Chris? I have been walking without earbuds, but it's on stroller walks with my daughter. And, I'm just like, Gucci, Gucci, Gucci the whole time. Like nothing's going on. Nothing's going on up here. But to take this advice, I really need to shut off the TV at night. like I fall asleep with the TV on. We do use the sleep timer, but there is no just silent processing. And every time I do turn off the TV and process, I'm always happy I did. I just need to press that button. So thank you for that motivation. All right, everyone. Well, keep sharing any additional thoughts if you have them. Just going to wrap up. I don't have a question on this, but some interesting news, and I think it's for the better. An interesting move by TikTok. They are now going to be posting Amber Alerts in your For You page. And you can see here, users will also be able to call 911 directly from the app. Directly from the app. I've never seen anything like this. I wonder if other social media platforms will follow suit. In fact, there was an Amber Alert recently here in Florida, and I would log into social media or on Facebook and see people I know in the area reposting and sharing things, but it never like officially came from Facebook. There's always like little Facebook groups like find this person or help us with this, tragic thing that happened, unfortunately, but rarely the platforms get involved. So I thought this was a step in the right direction, and hopefully it'll help someone in the future. As it is, we do have Apple that sends us those text message Amber Alerts, but this is one more layer of visibility that I thought was smart. So just want to keep you in the loop on that. All right, everyone. So lastly, let's just wrap up with some helping hands. Share something you need help with right now, anything you want to share and just put out into the universe. And we'll see if we can connect you guys and have some fun. But as you're doing that, one more thing I always want to suggest is send a DM to someone who joined Pop Chat today. We had a great bunch, great conversation, all of you smarty pants. And, I would hope that you would potentially want to continue the conversation and connect with each other. And maybe there was something someone said that really resonated with you, or someone that has a career experience that you want to bond over or relate to or learn more about. So feel free to do that. This is that safe space to connect and have a little fun on this fine Friday. So thank you so much for joining. I'll give you a moment to share some helping hands in the chat. If there's anything you want to put out there that we could potentially help with, go for it. Oh my goodness. Sorry, these are delayed. Spencer gifts. Just an X-rated hot topic. Yes. Spirit Halloween. Yeah, that does make sense. I'm going to have to research that a little bit more. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. I hope you don't have any more meetings. Enjoy your weekends. Go stream the new Jonas Brothers song. Any fans here? And yeah, I'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye.